So in John chapter 7, the tension around Jesus is just reaching a boiling point. Seriously, the crowds are buzzing, the religious leaders are plotting, and right in the middle of all of this chaos, there's this one single question hanging in the air. It's a question that drives every single conversation and every single debate in this entire story.
Right. Who exactly is this man? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. The whole chapter is basically watching different groups of people try to figure this out. Is he a prophet? Is he some kind of deceiver? A good man? Or could he actually be the Messiah? Every single encounter we're about to see forces people to pick a side.
You know, the story doesn't even kick off with a miracle. It starts with a threat. The religious leaders down in Judea are actively, and I mean actively, looking for a way to kill Jesus. So he's moving carefully. He's being deliberate because he knows every step he takes is bringing him closer and closer to a major showdown in the very heart of the nation.
So instead of some grand public entrance, Jesus' journey toward this big confrontation begins quietly, almost in secret. It all starts with a conversation within his own family, and it reveals this huge gap between the world's idea of success and God's actual plan.
Now, the setting for all of this is absolutely crucial. You have to understand the Feast of Tabernacles was one of the biggest deals on the Jewish calendar. Just imagine a massive week-long celebration. Jerusalem would have been absolutely packed with pilgrims, all there to remember how God faithfully provided for them in the desert. It is the perfect stage for a huge public announcement.
And this is where that family tension really comes into play. His own brothers, and the text makes a point to say they don't even believe in him yet, they're pushing him to go public. You know, their logic is pretty straightforward. If you want to be famous, you got to get on a bigger stage. But Jesus, he's operating on a completely different clock. He's not driven by what the polls say or some marketing strategy. He is following the Father's perfect timing.
So Jesus travels to Jerusalem quietly, after his brothers have already left. But his absence, and then his sudden but discreet arrival, just adds more fuel to the fire. The whole city is electric with rumors and secret arguments all about him.
And the division here is just so sharp. It's black and white. Some people are totally convinced he's a good man, others are just as sure that he's a fraud, leading people astray. But you'll notice, these are all just whispers. People are afraid to speak their minds out loud because the religious authorities have already made it pretty clear where they stand. Fear is literally suffocating the search for truth.
And then, bam, right in the middle of the festival, Jesus completely changes his strategy. He steps out of the shadows and walks right into the temple courts, the very center of religious life, and he just starts teaching openly. And what he says immediately challenges everything they thought they knew.
Wow, what a massive claim. The crowds are just stunned by his wisdom, right? Especially since everybody knows he has no formal training from the rabbis. And Jesus hits their astonishment head-on by pointing away from himself. He's basically saying, look, this isn't my personal philosophy. This is a direct message from God the Father. The implication is crystal clear. You can't separate my teaching from its divine source. If you accept my words, you have to accept where they come from.
And he's not done yet. He goes right after the leaders' hypocrisy. I mean, they're furious that he healed a man on the Sabbath, but they have absolutely no problem performing circumcision on the Sabbath because it's part of the law of Moses. He brilliantly exposes their inconsistency. They're so focused on the tiny details of the law that they've missed the entire point. And so he tells them, stop judging by what you see on the surface. Look deeper.
Well, this teaching makes the leaders lose their minds. They send their own guards to arrest him right then and there. But in this moment of just incredible tension, nothing happens. The guards can't touch him, and the text gives us this profound reason. His hour had not yet come. It's this powerful reminder that it's God's sovereign plan that's in control, not the agendas of men.
And now we reach the climax of the whole chapter. Everything we've seen, the whispers, the debates, the confrontation, it has all been building to this one single moment. On the last, most important day of the entire festival, with the biggest crowds you can imagine, Jesus makes maybe the most stunning invitation of his entire ministry.
Okay, try to picture this scene. A key part of the festival was this daily water pouring ceremony. It was a powerful symbol, reminding everyone of how God provided water from a rock for them in the desert. So it's right against this backdrop, a symbol of physical thirst and God's provision, that Jesus stands up to speak.
He shouts this so everyone can hear him. And he's not just talking about being thirsty for a drink of water. He's talking about that deep, spiritual thirst of the human soul, that longing for meaning, for purpose, for God. And he presents himself as the only one who can quench it, not just with a little sip, but with overflowing rivers. So what in the world is this living water? Well, for everyone listening, this would have sounded a lot like the old promises from prophets like Isaiah. But Jesus makes it personal and immediate. The writer, John, just spells it out for us. Jesus is talking about the Holy Spirit. This isn't a one-time drink you take and you're done. No, this is a permanent, internal spring, the very presence of God, welling up inside a believer, bringing constant life and constant renewal.
As you can probably guess, a declaration that bold doesn't suddenly bring everyone together in unity. No, it just deepens the divide. The whispers that were happening before, now they turned into open, loud arguments, and that conflict with the authorities finally comes to a head.
Remember those temple guards who were sent to arrest him? Well, they come back to their bosses completely empty-handed, and their excuse is just incredible. I mean, these were hardened temple police, right? And even they were so captivated by the sheer authority and truth in Jesus' words that they were physically unable to carry out their orders. No one has ever spoken like this man.
And right in the middle of the leader's angry, sarcastic response, one man speaks up. It's Nicodemus, the same Pharisee who came to Jesus in secret a few chapters back. He doesn't make some grand defense of Jesus, but he does appeal to their own law, to their own sense of justice. It's a small step, for sure, but a courageous one. A quiet call for basic fairness in a room that is just filled with rage.
So after all that, what does this chapter really leave us with? Well, first, just like Jesus turning down his brother's advice, we're reminded to trust God's perfect timing over our own ambitions. Second, like those divided crowds, we're really challenged to take a hard look at our own assumptions and see how they might be blinding us to what's true. But I think most of all, we're left with that powerful invitation. The deepest thirst of our souls can only, and I mean only, be satisfied by Jesus, the true source of living water.
And that really just leaves us with the final question to think about. Jesus told the crowd to stop judging by appearances and make a right judgment. In a world that is so obsessed with the external, with what we can see, what's immediately obvious, what profound truths might we be missing simply because we're not willing to look a little deeper?